morning and welcome to Brandenburg News Network. I am Donna Brandenburg and it is the 7th day of January 2025 and welcome to the show today. You know, it was really an amazing thing to have the break that I had over Christmas. I really needed the break. I think everybody did. It was wonderful to spend time with family and friends and really celebrate Christmas and the true meaning of Christmas. And it was nice, but I missed everyone. I very much missed everyone, and getting the news out there and being able to drill down on what's going on. And I'm going to tell you that while I was gone during Christmas, there was a lot of stuff happening. I did go down to Mar-a-Lago. I posted some pictures on my Telegram channel. I will post some more of them over on X, as well as I'm on Getter and I'm on Truth Social and such. But those are my primary places where I post right now. And my TikTok channel is going pretty well. So if you can go and find me on TikTok, I have the links on my Telegram channel, X, Getter, and Truth Social. Also, if you want to get a hold of me any other way, I have a link tree up there, which is QR. Let's see it. I'll have to post it for you so you can see it. So, but anyhow, want to bring on my buddy this morning, John Tater, Lawful Defense. How you doing, John?
I'm doing good.
Good. So just so everybody knows, we were having a little technical difficulty this morning. So John's got his video going, but the audio is coming through the phone. So if there's a little bit of a disconnect there, that's why. But guess what? We endeavor to persevere. We are not news wimps here. We are citizen journalists at its finest who never give up. So how are you this morning?
I'm doing very well. I also had a great Christmas. It was wonderful. I had family over and we raised the roof a little bit and we had fun.
Oh, that's good. That's really good. Yeah, it's really nice to take a break at the holidays. I think everybody needs to take a break once in a while, just because there is so much going on. What I'm noticing is a lot of people are having a hard time coping with the amount of change. So we can look and say that, you know, baby Castro, Justin Trudeau stepped down. We have some real problems in the state of Michigan as well as across the country. Did you notice? I want to bring up an article on this because I have to look it up a minute. But did you notice that several of the states, when they were confirming President Trump yesterday, split the electoral votes?
Yeah, and that's not lawful. It is what they've planned, what those states have decided to do, but it's not a lawful process.
I want to get into that because there's some real questions about that. And there was an initiative done to allow them to do that. Not constitutional. They're breaking the law.
Well, but then it's not constitutional. Then it's a violation of the law and they should all be imprisoned for it.
At that level, they should all be charged with treason.
That's right.
So I can bring the article up in a minute. We'll talk about this. But I also wanted to talk about the 400 acres, which they have slated to put a solar farm in there, connected to none other than the same, you know, people that were behind the Goshen stuff, which is the country that shall not be named, China. And the problem I see with that is that the DNR, which is, I believe, Eagle now, as they changed the name to try to make it seem more patriotic, is in charge of 4.6 million acres in the state of Michigan, claiming logging rights as well as mineral rights. Now, I've been talking about this for quite a long time, how they basically commandeered our natural resources. That's what this is all about. I've watched them. I've watched them up north clear cutting. I have been talking about this for a year, at least. For at least a year, I've been talking about this. But this is just part of their new stated goal, which is to commandeer 300,000 of those acres and turn them into industrial, public private partnerships, part of the Green New Initiative. That's
National socialism.
It is. And they're trying to socialize all of our businesses. This morning, I also had a friend that showed me pictures in his area. It looks like they're on a turkey farm and they're killing turkeys on this farm at night and throwing them into trucks. I have some videos that he shared with me this morning. It is disturbing what's happening here. And all I can say is I'm hoping for some positive change here with President Trump getting in place, but I'm also very concerned with Elon and Vivek pointing out the H-1B visas and actually supporting that. I'm hoping that this is part of their plan to show people what is going on instead of, just doing it. People need to get educated on this, and everyone needs to get in the game. We can no longer sit back and hope that somebody's going to come to our rescue. We have got to get in the game, and we're going to have to start removing these people by personal lawsuits, suing them personally for breaking the law, citizen to citizen, not in their official capacity, but in their personal capacity, because these people are evil.
They are. I'm having a difficulty with either I'm in the shadow or I got the sun blaring in my eyeballs. So,
it's going to be,
we're going to have to deal with that one way or the other.
Well, this is a morning of adjust and adapt, so that's okay.
That's right.
So I'm going to bring this up here a minute, and then I'll see if I can bring that article up while we're talking about this, because this is disturbing, people. It really is.
Is there any constitutional authority that allows the government to own property?
No, it doesn't.
Absolutely, it does not.
And
so this nonsense about conservation and taking over natural resources and anything else they can pull out of their hat or wherever else they pull it out of is unconstitutional, and they should be all held for treason.
Yes, they should.
I hope those politicians are listening.
I do too.
If they're listening, then maybe they got a conscience, and maybe they're going to fix this process. But I doubt it, and so most of them are going to end up at Gitmo and going to be tried for treason, because that's what it is. It's treason.
It's absolutely treason.
The state government has no authority to own property. The property belongs to the public, not to the government.
And the natural resource
has no authority to adjust it, to use it, to steal from it, whatever they're doing. And they've been doing this for years. Going back to John Engler, who is also a crook and stole the property and made deals with China for the water resources. So this is nothing new. This has been going on for a long time. And we, the people, need to say, no, you can't do this anymore. We're putting an end to
it. You go back through history too and watch what all the wars were all about. And it's about the land. That's what they always have fought over, the land, because the land is where the resources are. Now, the state of Michigan, we, the people, own those resources as laid out by the Constitution. Literally, they've turned us into a slave class. And in fact, if you look back to the Middle Ages, when there were slaves in the Middle Ages, the slaves in Europe, and such, the indentured servants, whatever you want to say, were treated better than the American citizenry is now. They had more benefits than what we have right now. And they were actually freer, which should be disturbing to everyone. And on another note, these H-1B visas, if everybody doesn't know what's going on there, I've written about this too. There's things called, here, I'm going to take this down a minute and we'll put this back up in a minute. There are things out there right now called they're kind of like, the term for them is body shops. And what they're doing is they're bringing over workers from, say, India and such, but they're not looking for high caliber tech jobs. No, that's not what it is. They put them through about 2 to 4 week boot camp on tech. They advertise the jobs at $200,000. The advertised jobs are for $200,000, but the workers are getting paid about $40 an hour, which is about an $80,000 a year job. And the body shops are making millions off of this. The problem that we have is that it's sort of like indentured servitude, because the workers cannot leave those companies. They have to work there for 4 to 5 years in order to get the promised green card to be able to stay.
Yeah.
Which, I don't know about you guys, but I'm not buying any of this bullshit for any reason whatsoever. Not happening, no how, no way. They are literally using it for that reason. So I want to ask some questions, both for Elon and Vivek, who are pushing these H-1B visas. Why are they not doing the tech over in India? If this is what this is all about, that we're getting better tech and we've already learned that everything can be remote and such, why is it that they're not doing the tech in India? We know right now, take a call from any of these telemarketers and such. When you listen to them, you can tell their accent. A lot of them are coming from India. So why are we not just leaving them there in India and paying them what they allegedly are paying for? Because they're not doing it. They're not paying it that way. The money they're getting, the big money, is in human trafficking, indentured servitude, and it's coming from our tax dollars that they are grifting more than 50% off of what they've been saying that they are being paid.
Got to understand that we're still in a war. This is still an information war. And I believe that Vivek and Elon are doing exactly what Trump's group, team, whatever you want to call them, force is telling them to do.
Putting it out in the public.
To make it very clear that this is a bad process. But they can't, by saying it, it doesn't work. When Trump got out and he said, I took hydrochloroquine to get over my COVID-19, and that cured the COVID-19, the deep state was up at arms. The public was told by the news media, the corrupt news propaganda media, that it's horse dewormer, and that it shouldn't be used with humor. You remember those stories? So this is kind of the same thing, but it's a different process. It's a different story. That's all. But it's the same thing. The American people are not privy to this information about an N1 visa, and most people don't even know what that is or never heard of it. And frankly, I didn't hear about it until it started becoming public. I wasn't aware of. There's so much going on in the government, and so many different angles that the criminals in Washington are doing on the public, and the public is not aware of it. The news is not telling us. They're expecting us to figure it out. Most of us don't have time to figure it out, and that's not our job anyway. That's why we elect these public functionaries to function in government and to do what they're supposed to do to keep America good and strong. And the people that we put in office through phony elections, which is what's going on, that have been installed. And you can name 90% of the Democrats that have all been installed, and all of the rhinos that have all been installed. These people are not in the favor of the American government or in America or the United States. Their whole process is to destroy this country. And we, the people, where do we get our information? Most people get it from the news. Now things have changed. Things are changing. We are starting to go onto the internet. We're starting to do research. We're starting to learn these things. And this new visa process that's been going on for how many years? For many, many, many years. This is not a new one. So it's now becoming out to the public eye. So we see what it is. And has to be done. I don't see any other way of educating the public, because the public's still half asleep. I still see people putting masks on today over this new flu, bird flu, or what is it? X flu or whatever they call it. I don't remember now. Gen X. Yeah, all of these new viruses that are out there. People didn't learn from COVID-19 that it's a lie, that it's phony, that it's a fraud, and it's used to control and manipulate the public. Just like 9/11 was controlled to control the public when they blew up the buildings, and all of a sudden they had the Patriot Act available. A 10,000-page Patriot Act written already. As soon as 9/11 happened, the Patriot Act was brought into public view. That was there forever. That was nothing new. And the government, to expect the government to put that kind of law together, those kind of pages together overnight, come on. Wake up, America. We have to be more vigilant as to what's going on.
And who's running the Republican Party in the state right now? Pete Hoekstra, who signed that Patriot Act 2 times, not once, but twice.
He's a crook. He's a crook. Do you hear us? Do you hear us, Hoekstra? I hope you're listening, because you're going to be one that's going to be dangling on the end of a rope.
All I want to hear from any of these people is how they're going to go back and fix what they've broken. And nobody's talking about it. We're just going to, sweep it under the rug. You didn't see anything. That's just going to go away. You know what? They're just digging in deeper with this sort of thing. But I really do believe, as you do, and you said it very well, that President Trump throws things out there for us to look at and question. He has made some very questionable endorsements as well as appointments, very questionable ones. And I think that's to get us to think. I mean, if you're a dad and I'm a mom, I'm a mom, you're a dad, and we look at our kids, a lot of times you let them make mistakes so that they learn it. And if I didn't want them to repeat it, I would let them make some big mistakes. I even let them fall a little bit in order for them to realize that the decision they made was bad. Now, I don't mean that in a physical way. I would, of course, save my children from that. But if they were making bad choices, I'd sit back and let them make the choices and say, how's that working for you?
Yeah.
And let them learn. And I really think that that's what President Trump is doing. Now, the question right now, because the entire government is totally off the rails, absolutely off the rails in so many ways, is what is going to happen next. Now, I received a report about the Al-Qaeda cells in the United States. I also have a report that there was 120 warheads that we gave to Ukraine, and there's 60 of them that were shipped back to the United States, which are lost, presumably in the United States, and they don't exactly know where they are.
Of course they do.
So with all of that going on, is this, first of all, the question is it just scare tactics? Because the drones, no, not buying that either. We've got military bases in the United States training drone operators. So who's running them? Likely we are. What are they looking for? I hope bad guys. I hope they've got everybody tracked down. If you're doing the wrong thing, I'm sorry. I don't believe in their surveillance state, but we're in a freaking war right now with people who are part of the cartels in every single state. And I hope that they are tracking bad guys in order to start the elimination round, which I think needs to seriously happen. But everything is up in the air right now. There's so many balls being juggled in the air. There's so much law breaking going on. I don't even know where you would start with that. Just even to explain it to people. Most people here are already going to know a lot of that because of the fact that the people that come on here aren't looking for a softball news source. They're looking for, well, what's the real, basis for this, right? But a lot of the people out there, they've got no clue. They got no clue that they're in about an 85% tax bracket. And that's not even talking about inflation.
That's right. That's right. When you consider that the dollar itself is worth about 2 cents, spending power, that's what it has. And that's why when you make $80,000 a year, you're barely making life, barely making your ends meet, barely getting food and paying for the heat and all the other stuff that you need to survive, because they have destroyed the dollar. They have destroyed the value of the currency. And by doing so, that is a tax. That's what they call it. It's a tax. It's not a, inflation is a tax on the public. And besides you digging into your pocket on April 15th, which I don't do anymore. I haven't done that since 2002. I've said I'm not doing that anymore, folks. If you want to, and I'm not recommending folks to run out and stop paying without knowing the law, without knowing how to stop doing it, because you're going to get yourself in trouble. But if you know the law, if you come to our meetings on Wednesday nights and you learn the law and you learn what you can do and what you can't do and who these public functionaries are, public criminal functionaries, I think we should probably change that to criminal functionaries. If you learn those things about what's going on in the world, then you can get through this process without going through serious trauma in your life, because you understand what they can do and what they can't do.
Yeah, well, it comes down to the education part of it. So anyhow, let's look at this Constitution right here, source here. So going back to the DNR, Eagle, criminal organization with the Nazi DNR agents who have more power than almost any other law enforcement in the state of Michigan. They can go on your property for no reason, without a warrant. They can basically take property and then have, because it's in their possession, make a legal claim to it. This is so messed up, it's not even funny. Michigan Constitution, Article 5 or 4, legislative branch. 52, Section 52, natural resources, conservation, pollution, impairment, destruction. The conservation and development of the natural resources of the state are hereby declared to be of paramount public concern in the interest of health, safety, general welfare of the people. The legislature shall provide for the protection of the water, air, and other natural resources of the state from pollution, impairment, and destruction. Now, I got to ask a very important pointed question here. How in the world did they all of a sudden have scope creep into being part of the energy infrastructure of the state of Michigan, with partnering up with China and the solar panels and the battery plant and the green initiatives and all of this nonsense? How in the world did we jump over that line and now we can do anything? The DNR can just do anything.
This is the Constitution, the state Constitution. Michigan Natural Resources Trust Fund. And I haven't read through this because this has not been an issue of mine. But what this does, this process, this article, which is Article 9, Section 35, is what we have to go through and read and see, do they have the authority to do this? And you're saying 52. What is 52? Is that, let's see, is there a 52?
Section 52 is Article 4. Michigan, the one you were talking about, Michigan Constitution Article, what was it?
Well, this one is, it's called Michigan Natural Resources Fund.
What's the number?
Article 9, Section 35. And that's where we have to go back to the Constitution. If it's not written in this document, they do not have the authority to do it. And so they set up all of these funds, but we have to go through and see what those funds say and what they can do. And you're saying this is Article 3, Section 52?
That was Article 3. That was Article 4, Section 52.
Article 4.
Yeah, but here we go. This is what you're talking about from the legislature here. So it's Article 9, Section 35. This is what it says, and it's the Michigan Natural Resources Trust Fund. But I do not think that we have anything in here that gives them the ability to, in fact, take over the resources the way they have. And where's the money going? I don't even know. But I can tell you that they are literally clear cutting. They are clear cutting. They are absolutely destroying the land up there. And this is the DNR. If you ever wondered why, too, you have no access, that nobody has access really, or very limited access to the waterways. You ever ask yourself, why
Did you
are
read 52?
what's that?
Did you read Article 52?
Yes.
Well, let's read it.
Well, I
Natural
did.
Resources conservation, pollution, impairment, destruction.
That's it. There's nothing for an energy in there.
The conservation and development of natural resources of the state are hereby declared to be paramount public concern in the interest of the health, safety, and general welfare of the people.
Yes.
Okay. What part of the what do we call it? The solar process covers any of that?
None of it. And it's supposed to. Why are they developing 300,000 acres into industrial use? They're
Exactly.
stealing it.
The legislature shall provide for the protection of the air, water, and other natural resources of the state from pollution, impairment, and destruction. Destruction, setting up these solar panels, is that destroying people's property? And is that destroying property itself by setting up these panels? Is it cost effective? Is a solar panel cost effective to the use of fossil fuels? And the answer to that is no. And anybody that thinks otherwise is definitely not following what is going on in the environment and not going on in reality.
Yeah, you ever think about how absolutely moronic it is for this EV battery crap, and how many gallons, and I don't mean gallons, I mean like barrels of fuel, diesel fuel, that they have to use within construction equipment in order to get the lithium, the cobalt, the rare earth minerals to do this sort of thing. You're going to burn, at this state of the game, some sort of petroleum product, not fossil fuel. It's not a fossil fuel. So when people say
I agree, but that's what we've been told all these years. So okay, you're right. It's petroleum.
It's petroleum.
It's not a fossil fuel.
No,
it doesn't. It's not created by dead animals. I do understand. I know that long time ago.
Yeah, me too. You know what's really crazy? For anybody to think that we had that much of a mass death, to have that big of a deposit underground, that all the dinosaurs and the vegetation all died together and it got smashed down into this area under bedrock, blink, 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 in order where nothing alive ever walked, blink, blink, blink. It's like, it's so absurd. It's just completely, I don't know, crazy.
Yeah, but I bought into it as a kid. That's what
I think we all did at some point.
Yeah, so we were brought in. We were lied to back then. I was lied to 70 some years ago. And I bought into it because I didn't know any better. I figured the government was in America was a good government, and they were here to protect us and to do things for us. They've been destroying us in this country ever since, 1776. They have been trying to take over and destroy America. And people need to get that rude awakening, and they're not. And so what Trump is doing in this process of him is educating. And I think he's doing a good job. I've been trying to educate for 40 years, people. They're not listening. They're not paying attention, because they could be not paying their income tax, to not be paying their bank's income tax, to steal money back from you when you go out and you earn a living by your labor. They're stealing your labor. It's called an income tax. And if you knew the laws, you'd know that you didn't need to do that. That was totally voluntary, and the government cannot force you to pay an income tax. They cannot. but they do it through the evil black guy. Oh, I'm evil and the IRS is going to get you. All this crap, and they scare the heck out of you because you don't know the law, because you don't know that the law is on our side, and we can win this by fighting it with the law, because most of those people that are in government are cowards. That's why they're in government, because they can't do it in the real world. You take Biden and you tell him you got to go out and earn a living, he'd starve to death overnight.
Yeah, what's he going to do?
He has no skill at all. He had no skill being in government. So why do we keep electing these public functionaries who get out of college, if that's what you want to call it, the university, if that's what you want to call it, and supposedly have this 4-year sheepskin, but they never go out in the public and earn a living? I mean, really get their hands dirty. They go into government and they become a public leech on the system for the rest of their lives, and they keep stealing money from us, and we don't know any better. The public just, I got to work, and I need to take Sunday off and watch my football game because I'm too tired to do anything else. I'm too tired to learn my rights and my laws because actually somebody else should be doing it for me. Well, then that's what you get. You go out and you hire an attorney, and he's supposed to do something for you, and he's sticking it to you in your back because that's his job, to steal as much money as he can from you, and you're buying into it. I don't know how else to say it, but here's again, article, this I want to know how they're using Section 52 to give them the authority to do what they're doing. Doesn't say that they have that authority. If it's not written there, they don't have it.
Correct. Let's look at the next one here, which is, let's see if I can get down to Article 9, Section 35, which I was at that one a minute ago. This is what you brought up, and this is Michigan Natural Resources Trust Fund, Article 9, Section 35. There is hereby established in Michigan Natural Resources Trust Fund. The trust fund shall consist of all bonuses, rentals, delayed rentals, and royalties collected or reserved by the state under the provision of leases for the extraction of non-renewable resources from state-owned land, except such revenues accruing under leases of state-owned lands acquired with money from the state or federal game and fish protection funds, or revenues accruing from lands purchased with such revenues. However, until the Michigan State Parks Endowment Fund reaches an accumulation principled at $800 million, the revenues from bonuses, rentals, delayed rentals, royalties described in the section that would otherwise be deposited in the trust fund shall be deposited into the Michigan State Parks Endowment Fund. In addition to the revenues described in the subsection, the trust fund may receive appropriations money or other things of value. The assets of the trust fund shall be invested as provided by law. I think we should read all of this, but I do not see, I don't see anything in it that goes back to the people, especially to give them the right to say, clear cut the land. For what purpose are they clear cut? You realize that if a company went out there and clear cut an area of land, oh man, the DNR eagle would be all over them. Said, you took down one tree, you're going to have to plant 10 trees in its place, and you're going to restore the land. And what's your restoration plan? And how much grass seed are you putting down? How are you going to make sure you protect the eastern box turtle and the bats and everything else like that? It would be absolutely game on to create those other industries to preserve the land. Instead of, maybe we should just leave it alone, set it aside for a while. I don't get it.
Well, here again, as we have said more than once, that the 1963 Constitution is unconstitutional.
And tell everybody exactly why, because I know that some people have not participated in those discussions that we've had, John.
Because 0.1% voted for became a positive vote for the Constitution. And if you take 2/3 of the legislature to amend the Constitution, how can it take a 50 plus 1, 50% of the public plus 1 to pass the Constitution? Can't be. One or the other. How can you have a document such as this was presented to the public? And I don't know, because I was kind of young at that time, what presenting meant to the public. But to present a document like this at 50% plus 1 passed it, plus 1% passed it, and therefore now we are living under a constitution that is unconstitutional. It takes 2/3 of the public if you're going to do that. And actually, that's why we have a legislature. We hire the legislature to do this for us, but they don't want to take the heat. So they turn it over to the public. This is the referendum process. We're going to let you vote in a millage. They don't have the authority to let us vote in a millage. That's a democracy. We have them say we need this much money, and therefore we hold them accountable, but they don't want the heat.
So what you're saying is all the referendums, in your opinion, unlawful? Of
course they are. They're not republic. They're not in the republic. They're in a democracy. They're not lawful. And that our public functionaries that have pushed this nonsense of the referendums, those people are traitors. They're traitors to the republic. They're traitors to their function in government, or what their public functionary duties are. They're not doing their job. But we keep electing these slime balls in Washington and in Lansing, and we pay them high salaries to do a job that they don't do.
To steal from us.
Doesn't make sense.
Makes no sense whatsoever. So what would you do in this case with what they're proposing for taking that 400 acres and turning it into a solar farm? What would the John Tater plan look like?
The John Tater plan would find out who voted for this and make that public, number one, and then have the local people that are in those particular areas that have that particular public functionary in their region go after them. But you know, just calling them on the phone and saying, don't do this, doesn't work, because they don't listen. What happens is you write them the letters, and then you start filing a lawsuit. I don't care if you don't win in court. The fact of the matter is that you filed it, and they have to defend it. Now, for example, if we pick on, I don't know, Rashida Tlaib, for example, she's a good socialist. We pick on her, and 50 people file lawsuits against Rashida Tlaib, and she has to answer 50 lawsuits individually. Do you think that would get her attention?
I would hope so.
What would work better? A public forum where you sit and you chat with her, or send her an email, or maybe call her on the phone, or a lawsuit?
Pretty extra sure it would be the lawsuit.
You're probably right. And generally, for the general public to do such a thing, it's not that expensive. Heck, you could file a claim in small claims court on it. You only make $7,000 on it if you win. That's the limit for small claims, but you could file a small claims lawsuit on her, and that's just filling out a document. And then she has to defend that. Now, one person, that's no big deal. That's no big deal. 50 people, that's a big deal. 100 people, that's even a bigger deal.
I don't think I've ever heard about the small claims court for someone that's in public office.
Well, we're going to be doing that very soon on a judge. His name is Travis Reed. He's a Novi. we're going to put together because he actually kicked a woman out of small claims and changed it over to general civil so they could have an attorney fight that case.
Really?
But she filed a case in small claims, and her case in small claims was based on she was denied work because of COVID, because she didn't get the shot. And so she filed a claim in small claims court for $4,000. And the judge automatically, without a hearing, on his own, and the attorney for the defendant filed the documents in small claims and got it transferred to general civil. Now we're going after the judge in small claims. We're going to start in small claims. That's going to be the low one. That's the low-hanging fruit one. That's going to be for the $7,000 we're going to go after him. And then if that doesn't work, then we're going to take it to federal, and it's going to be millions. So one way or the other, we're going to go after Travis Reed, and we're going to put him in a box where he belongs. Like I am going after Yonker, who is the judge in your court, federal in Grand Rapids, and I'm going after the slimy criminal in Cleveland, Ohio, Nugent. Nugent's a liar, a cheater, a fraud, perjurer, and I'm going to go after him. I've already got the documents. They're ready to go. I was hoping to give him a Christmas present, but it'll just have to be after that, you know. But I'm going after those guys. That guy lied on the record, said I was a criminal and incarcerated, and I didn't pay my filing fee. And I gave him a chance to get out of that and make it right, but he chose not to do it. So I'm going after him for millions. I'm tired of these, and that's the only way we're going to do it. We're going to, first of all, you start with the lawsuit against the Rashida Tlaib, and if you get bounced because of some crooked judge in court, which you probably will, then you go get the judge, because he's the one that should have done it the correct way, and he didn't. And he's the one that needs to be put on the skewer.
That was
if
my.
you don't do that, then why? Then let's quit.
That was my big concern with the 2024 election, was how many people just really, I was like, why did they allow President Trump to win? Because they cheated so badly on the down ballot candidates. In our area, there was no one basically running against the judges. The judges were running unopposed. And
this is an interesting
it was weird
story that I've heard from another attorney. That an attorney, because you have to be an attorney for 5 years, that's one of the stupid laws in this book here, in this Constitution. You have to be an attorney for 5 years in good standing before you could run for judgeship. That's number one.
Isn't this where we should start questioning this?
Oh, absolutely. That's why this is an unconstitutional constitution. We have been living under an unconstitutional constitution since '63, and that's one of the reasons. You can't have a judge that's an attorney that is a member of the bar judging you, an individual, pro se, against another attorney who is a friend of the bar, who is a member of the bar in the same club as the judge. These club members don't work for the public. They work for each other. So here we have a problem with a judge that's a member of the bar, and you're going to expect him to rule against a bar member, against you, even if you're right by the law. And of course, that's not happening in many cases because they're the criminals. So what we have to do is we have to, number one, get rid of the Michigan Constitution. And I think it's coming up for renewal in 2 years or a year. So we need to look at it very carefully and make it a people's constitution, not a government's constitution, which is what it is. It's a government's constitution. It's for the benefit of the government, not for the benefit of the public. And it's been asked backwards since its inception. But getting back to going after the public functionaries, going after the the judges who have sworn an oath to their office to follow the law, to follow the Supreme Court. Those people are the ones that need to be put on the skewer. They have to. We have to go after them individually, and my hat's off to anybody that wants to pick up that mantle and go after them, because they're the ones that are the problem. As Jefferson had put it, the downfall of the republic will be led by the judiciary, which it is, and we are in that problem right now.
Yeah, there's no accountability. There's one judge in Grand Rapids right now that there's actually a Facebook support group because of some of her unlawful, immoral decisions.
Yeah, the being publicly humiliated is a great thing and will help. But what would be better is if they are humiliated by having to pay a fee or a fine to you or a judgment. And yes, it's going to be I know this is going to be a long road to hoe here, going after this judge. Heck, I've been going after Judge Patani, who I think might have retired by now. She's a criminal, but I've been going after her, and I'm going to still go after her. Once I take care of Nugent and Yonker, then I'm going back to the beginning, and I'm going to start it against the Internal Revenue and all of those people again. We're going to continue to go. This battle is going to continue to go as long as I can take a breath.
That's awesome. I would love to have a statewide group of people that would actually organize and have some people on staff that would be able to give out counsel, because under the Constitution, you're allowed counsel. You don't have to have a bar attorney, which I think is important. You should be able to just do counsel. And I think that honestly, the General Assembly has got part of it right, but the organizations that I've seen are very fractured, very, very fractured, most of them. But putting the grand juries in place to investigate situations and bring them forward before indictment, so that the public functionaries have to listen to grand juries that are bringing evidence in bad behavior forward. I think there's many things that we can do.
That doesn't work.
Well, I know it doesn't work, but it should.
You can't set up we gave that right up some years ago in our state of Michigan. We gave up the right to be to have the power of the jury. We gave it to the attorneys. We gave it to the prosecutors.
Are you saying that we gave it up?
Oh, I don't remember. I was kind of a high school, maybe I was a senior, maybe I was just getting into college at that time, when the public functionaries in Lansing decided that they're going to take the jury away from the public and because the people didn't want to do that. They didn't want to do, I don't want to do jury duty. I don't have time, all this nonsense. So because the people chose not to do jury duty, then they turned it over to the government to run the jury. And the government does run the jury, actually. And so when you go into the jury pool, they pick only the people that know the least amount of what's going on.
It's like politicians.
Yeah. They pick the dumber people to be on the jury because they know they're going to get a ruling positive in their direction. And that's not what the jury was all about. The jury was our protection against a runaway government. I'll tell you, when I was in, I was picked for jury duty to go to the city of Livonia. And I'm sitting and I'm number 5. I don't know if I told this story before, but I got to tell it again. I'm the 5th juror on the list. So McCann, who happens to know who I am, a judge, and I use that term very loosely, judge, she starts going down the list. Jury number 1. And the prosecutor asks the question, and the defending attorney asks the question. Yep, we want you to. All right. The jury number 2. does the same thing. Jury number 3, jury number 4, jury number 6. What happened to me? She went right over the top of my head and went on to juror 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, picked her 10 and said, okay, everybody else can go home.
Well,
I never had a chance to even be questioned.
Wow, so she just didn't like something about you.
Oh, she knew who I was because I was in front of her more than once. I even recused her once, so she knows who I was. So she didn't want me on the jury because I knew what the law was, and she didn't want anybody that knew what the law was because they might not get a conviction if I was there.
Oh, yeah, and they got to have convictions because 98% of the cases in Michigan end in a money judgment, which they take 18% of or some there to go into their retirement funds. This is such a racket. The state of Michigan is one big money laundering racket.
So you were bringing up, let's go to the professionals. You didn't say that necessarily, but it sounded like you were leading that, that you go to the professionals when you want certain things done. I'm going to tell you, the professionals that are out there that call themselves professionals, and I'm speaking of the doctors, but I'm speaking specifically of attorneys, those people are the last people you want to go to. And if you don't know the law and you haven't researched what's going on, then you're turning your life over to someone else. Does that make any sense to you?
Not at all.
Why would you do that? Whose responsibility is your health? The doctor's? He could care less. He's trying to manage your ailment. He's trying to do whatever it is to, and that's what the courts are doing. They're managing the legal system against you. And you don't know it because you've given your intelligence, if you have any, over to the attorneys to do your dirty work for you because you don't have the time or the inclination, or you don't want to learn the law. Well, and therefore you have a problem.
I think the thing of it is everybody feels so overwhelmed that a lot of people don't even know what to do. And therein lies a large problem because there are so many problems. I mean, we could bury ourselves in the amount of problems that there are out there. You don't have to fix them all. Just fix one thing. Do one thing and learn.
How would you eat an elephant?
One bite at a time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
How do you deal with government or with your legal problem? One bite at a time.
Yeah, you know, it's sort of like we have to take the piranha method.
Okay, so
you know, you jump in like piranhas
that are out there,
and it's like thousands of them that just go in there and just take lots of little bites, and then the problem turns, becomes wrong. And I don't mean cannibalize, that sort of thing. That's not what I'm saying. But we're saying with problems, if we just hit one thing at a time, and everybody does just a little bit, or we should say maybe an ant, a bunch of ants working together to move something. If we all work together, we could turn this around. But it's going to take a bunch of people that know that their efforts are going to be rewarded. And quite honestly, the only way that you have that mindset is if you give your time to God and say, you know what, I don't know exactly what the outcome is going to be, but I'm willing to work for those things that I believe in without failing and without giving up, because I know that as long as I keep going and don't quit, we're going to win.
As my friend Ron, who works with me on the legal end, says, you've been selected by God on this particular issue. God wants to know what you're going to do about it. Are you just going to go out and hire it and give it to somebody else? Or are you actually going to stand up and do something about it? This is your opportunity. And that's when we're talking about a speeding ticket, a seatbelt ticket, a ordinance issue, any of the stuff that's going on by government right now. If you just sit back and I'm going to hire an attorney to do it because I don't know. And God is looking at you. You're not a fighter. You're just going to quit and roll over in your situation and let somebody else do it for you. You've been selected. You've been individually, and you should be honored that you've been selected to make this fight. So get up and fight. What else you got to do? If you consider 365 days of the year and 24 hours in each day, and you can't spend 1 hour a week or 2 hours a week to educate yourself about anything, and that's the way we start. We start one problem at a time. You've never read the state constitution, you ought to do that. You ought to know what's in there, at least know what the pages are, and what, if you have to look up something, where to look it up. That's a good place to start, with the federal constitution, with the state constitution. Start somewhere, learn something. And each day you add to that learning curve a little more, a little more. Yes, I've been learning for 40 years. And so I'm trying to teach my 40-year experience to people if they want to learn. But you know what? We only get about 30 people that show up at our meeting, which makes me wonder what everybody else is doing. What are you doing? How many people show up at Donna Brandenburg's news network and listen and take it forward besides this 1 hour of the day? They learn what they can for this 1 hour, and then after that, we go back to our football game or whatever we go back to.
Actually, I'm pretty surprised at how many people actually stick with us, because this is a very long format. Usually people have about the attention of a fruit fly. So as the day goes on and time goes on too, more people come back and watch it. But I'm really always amazed and surprised at how many people actually do stick with a long format, because they're used to just going like this through, say, TikTok or something else.
No.
And so I think there's enough, and honestly, it's just like in the Revolutionary War. What did it take? 3% won the war. We don't need a lot of wasted time. We need some apex level performers out there that can actually get in and get the job done.
Yep.
The better performing people, the ones that are absolutely geared for the job, are the ones that are going to have to step up and throw everything they have into it, put their shoulder into it, and not stop until we get this thing into the state that it's supposed to be, which is the government for and by the people. We're going to have to, all of us, take a good stock. If you look at the world falling apart around it, whose fault is it? It's ours. Because
Absolutely.
We've let this thing go on. The government, it's not the government's fault. It's our fault. Even if we removed every one of these people that have committed treason, which is the entire Congress and legislature, every single one of them have committed treason. And most of the people that are unelected have also committed treason. The attorneys that they hire to defend their unconstitutional bent and their narratives and their policies, they've committed treason. The ones that have stolen from the people through public-private partnerships, they've committed treason. They have destroyed the public trust. The teachers that made these kids wear masks and shut them down, or in our township, one of the people that are on the administration allegedly took $20,000 to keep the kids in masks even after it was lifted. All of these people committed treason. They broke the public trust. All of them did. So what are you going to do? The problem's big. If anyone has an ounce of honesty in them, guess what? Tag, you're it. Join us, because there's not enough of us that are unwavering patriots who are going to fight with our last breath because of what we believe in, those invisible qualities, until we rescue the last child that's being trafficked, until we stop all this H-1B visa indentured servitude that's going on, until we stop all the lies coming out of these filthy politicians and narrative creators who are lying full time because their native tongue is lying. That's all they do. And guess what? we have found yet another case out there, which I believe is going to, once again, it's even probably even a little bit more it's as significant as Gretchen Whitmer and her wife through a 501c3 paying the signature gatherers, which was part of tanking the 2022 election. There's no two ways about it. They were involved in paying the signature gatherers, which over $1 million, which was a contributing factor. There's more than one, because I'm not going to absolve anybody of wrongdoing that they've done. There's another thing that happened that we're going to see how these mergers and acquisitions have destroyed this nation and how they're doing it in collusion with public functionaries. And we have all the receipts. This is going to be epic. I'm going to tell you what, for whatever reason, God is allowing things to get dropped into my lap. And so help me God, I'm going to see that every one of them that I come across is going to get prosecuted. And we're going to find some good people that are going to work together. If you know some attorneys that want to turn the tables over, this is our time. We have the evidence. We just need people to step up to help. And you all know how to get a hold of me, 616-430-4410. Not made it difficult for anybody, but guess what? We have the receipts, and this is going to include foreign money. It includes all of the DNR, FEMA, the Bureau of Land Management and Wildlife. All of this stuff is going to get right, because that's what they use them. And also city attorneys, the companies that are being paid to plan our communities. Oh, I don't know, which are the same ones that are in charge of destroying our food supply. It's all tied in. And we need every single person to step up and help with this, because what are we going to do if we remove them? We don't have enough people to fill the positions.
I hate to cut you short, but it's 10 and I got to be somewhere else. But I wanted to make one last comment.
Yes.
I had a bumper sticker on my Cadillac on my rear window, and somebody removed it. It was a Trump bumper sticker. Can you imagine that?
Really? When was this?
Oh, during the holidays. I must have parked it somewhere. At one of the restaurants or at a grocery store somewhere, and somebody came in. Say what? At the restaurant with Donna. Oh, at the restaurant. And somebody removed my bumper sticker. But I got a new one.
You got another one. Good. You know what? You need to sticker the whole thing.
I can't believe it. Can't believe somebody had the guts to do that.
Yeah, that's pretty bad. That's terrible. Well, John, thank you so much for coming on today. I always love our time together on Tuesdays, and I always learn so much. So thank you for everything that you've done for this nation and for taking the time to teach all of us. It's extraordinary the amount of time that you've put into this on Tuesdays. And so why don't you give yourself a plug here on your Wednesday night meeting?
We have a Wednesday night meeting, which we will be covering the law of Downs versus Bidwell. The dissenting opinion, which says that we are the sovereign, says that the Constitution is never suspended. And we are covering a lot of other points in that, and understanding that the Supreme Court is the supreme law of the land. We are the sovereign. We are the ones that have the power, not the government. But you have to learn that. You have to know where to find it if you need to find it. And we're teaching that stuff. So it's Wednesday nights at 7 to 9, and you can go to magnificentrepublic.com, get the info as to how to get to the website, or you can call me at 734-968-4715, and just tell me to give you a invite, and I'll send you an invite to our meeting. And you can become part of learning the process and learning the law. And guess what? It's only 2 hours of your life in a week, which is nothing. You waste 2 hours of your life every single day doing nothing. Here's a chance to get some education. And it's not good painful. We're not pulling teeth. It's very straightforward.
See how easy we make this for everybody to find us? It's amazing. This isn't like dealing with the state of Michigan where you've got to have a degree in navigating their website. We just put the phone numbers out, call a person, bam, you got reaction.
That's right.
So thanks for being here, John. I'm going to go to a very quick break, and I will be back with Shawn Starry, and we're going to be talking about survival strategies in case there's a terrorist outbreak or a war around us, or just if things go wrong, if the grid goes down. So I will be right back, and John will be back on with me next week, Tuesday.
Bye,
same time, same space, same bat channel. We'll see you next Tuesday, but coming up next is Shawn Starry. I'll be right back. 30 seconds.
Bye-bye.
Good morning and welcome to the second hour of Brandenburg News Network. I am Donna Brandenburg, and it is the 7th day of January 2025. I got to get used to that new year thing here when I say that. And welcome to our show today. I'm going to invite my buddy on, Shawn. Hey, Shawn, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Doing great. So I saw a lot of yeah. We were talking to what we were talking about.
Yeah. So when it comes to, recently they just came out. I don't know if people, I'm pretty sure people are aware of this, but if you haven't noticed that, the Sean Ryan show, where he was interviewing a former CIA handler, Sarah, and then he had the conversation with her about how she's claiming that there's over 1,000 Al-Qaeda operatives here in the United States that came through Joe Biden's CBP-1 app plan, where they would have all these illegals coming through the country through the CBP-1 app, of course, which a lot of the NGOs like Red Cross and those companies were complicit in this as well. And then there was a video that surfaced about 9 months ago of an actual Al-Qaeda terrorist who was held at Guantanamo Bay, Cuba, that Biden released. And he ended up coming through the south border and making claims on threats and how people wouldn't come to know who he is, And then we get into where he had talked about, I talked with another gentleman about the post bombing incident at the Trump Tower there in Las Vegas, and how this gentleman that supposedly did the bombing, apparently the FBI was trying to match the DNA to the DNA of his kid, and it turns out that that's not the guy that was in the car to begin with. So they don't know where he is. He's gone kind of dark. So one of the things is that 4 years ago, I have been on social media telling people, hey, these are the things that are going to be happening to our country. This is what they call a Trojan horse program that Joe Biden is instituting into our country, where Joe is going to be ushering in all of these people based on all of the data that we've been receiving, all of the information that we've been receiving. And so I started this idea of starting to teach people how to survive off the grid. And the reason why I say that is because when things start to get really, really hard and you're forced to get into a survival mode. And one of the big things is that on Joe Rogan podcast show that they was talking to another individual, and the guy said essentially 80% of the population, if all of the electricity went off today, 80% of the population would not survive within the next 3 to 6 months. And
I think that's generous. I don't think it's going to be that long. I really think that we got 2 weeks and you're going to see a whole bunch of people that will not survive.
Yeah. So my main concern is this. Now, we're all happy that Trump won the election, and we're especially happy after yesterday when Congress has certified him as the winner of the election. But understand that the first year, starting on January 20th, 1 year out, there is a lot of work that he has to undo. Everything that Joe Biden has done is going to be a massive amount of effort. And this is not just the Trump administration, the military itself, and everybody that's working within the federal agencies. It's going to take everybody. It's how do I want to say this? This is going to be the largest mass deportation that we've ever seen. But the problem is that through the course of this, we're going to see actual Al Qaeda style attacks on American infrastructure. We got so if you I don't know, a lot of people don't know this, but there was back in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, all the way up until about 2000. One of the things that the government has been doing is doing a lot of research about, as far as the defense strategy, it's sort of like a counterintelligence apparatus. Is how could another nation or multiple nations take America down? And they've all come to this consensus agreement is that it has to be done through socialization programs. Muhammad al-Gaddafi came up on the stage, I think it was this back in '89, but he said that we're not going to come right at you as a nation to go into war, but rather we're going to use your socialization programs, and we're going to flood your countries with as many as illegals as possible. But every single one of them will essentially be a sleeper cell. And the whole purpose of that is to infiltrate your government, infiltrate your government not only on the federal level, but state and local levels as well. And it's going to be what they call a soft takeover, a soft coup. And this is what we have been seeing for the last eight years up to this point, where we have seen a lot of illegals come in. But more importantly is how a lot of these terror cells are actually coming over here with visas that are coming in from other nations like Saudi Arabia, for example, or Qatar, or some of the other supposed to be allies. But what they've been doing is they've been giving them visas so they come over here legally, and their visas could be anywhere from 2 years on up to extended period of time. So when they come over here, nobody is batting an eye because why? Number one, they're legal, so nobody's questioning, our legal system. And so they're not, their eyes are not on them. Their eyes are on the people that are coming in through the southern border. But of course, the mainstream media has been focused on not reporting anything about the southern border, shaming anybody that's talking about it, using a lot of narcissist tactics to shut people down that are using their freedom of speech to talk about how many illegals have been coming into the border. And by my count right now, we've got about 22 million to 30 million illegal aliens in the United States. And this number is not going to go away until some kind of action is taken. But once that action starts happening, we're going to start to see these
pushback.
Right. We're going to see this massive pushback. We're going to see massive protests. And this is the younger generations of Americans who do not have the good formal education about American civics. They're going to be focused on supporting Hamas. They're going to be supporting on anybody that's illegal, for example, pandering to them because why? Because Joe Biden and the left have spent years pushing this propaganda to have these younger generations, targeting the younger generations to support them. And as what we're starting to see now, as well, there's a lot of the younger generations, they voted for Trump. They're starting to kind of wake up to some of these things. But here's the thing, the damage has already been done, right? So the enemy is not at the gates. The enemy is inside of the gates. And so when it comes to the point of this, their targets are going to be the largest mass casualty events that they can create. They're going to try to shut down the food supply. They're going to shut down the electricity. They're going to shut down social services. They're going to try to shut down a lot of the first responder services, right? In any type of case scenario where there's a massive, like, here's a good example. When they had the riot in Minneapolis and they were burning Minneapolis to the ground, the vast majority of the 911 services were literally at a standstill. They were told not to go out to these areas. Why? Because they had all these mass protesters out there, or I should say mass rioters. So a lot of the police backed off and they didn't do anything until things started to quiet and settle down. Then it was safe enough for them to be able to go in there. They canceled a lot of the ambulatory services to those areas as well. So people need to understand that when there's a mass casualty event that takes place, a lot of the 911 services, they're not gonna rush there right away. Here's another good example.
What happened in North Carolina?
Yeah.
And exactly. I mean, the same thing. I mean, they basically abandoned everyone down there and said, well, good luck, and then trying to hide what was really going on there instead of going there and actually responding. Now, I do know some people were down there very much responding, but it wasn't the organizations that we've, been told to trust. These organizations are infiltrated, deep state organizations. FEMA, EPA, all of them have been weaponized. Health and Human Services, the CPS, that's the largest human trafficker on the planet.
Exactly, yeah. CPS has been known, especially here in the state of Illinois, CPS has been known to traffic, legally kidnap by using the corporate law, not the constitutional law, but the corporate law. So we have a lot of corporate judges, right? And CPS comes in now because they had a CPS worker who went to a guy's home basically saying, we got a call that you're abusing your kid. Now, understand the guy just lost his wife in a bad car accident. And so it's just, he's really upset, and his kid's upset. And of course, the kid goes to school and the school gets monetized for every CPS call that they put out. And so they thought, okay, well, this kid needs some kind of services. And of course, they show up, they're talking about a potential abuse or whatever. And the father's like, no, I'm not letting you in my home. You have no legal authority whatsoever. And this woman decided that she was going to push her way in. So the man did what he had to do, and he protected himself, ended up in the resulting in the death of the CPS worker. So the state of Illinois is like, guess what? From now on, all CPS workers are going to have at least 2 police officers with them. So now they can bully their way into people's homes, taking people's children, subjecting them to this abuse of a court system. And a lot of them end up losing their kids. They end up going into foster care systems, which are
Human trafficking organizations, a lot of them. I've seen it.
Yeah.
Seen the results with the Hamners down in Tennessee. They took her daughter, and I had it live on the show when the workers came in with their heavy boots, and they literally had been trafficking her from within the system. That this is what's going on.
Yeah, and what they do is the foster care system is not what people think it is, where, you know, if you want to be a foster parent, you just go to the state and say, okay, I want to apply for a job, you know. No, they have a third-party company, Lutheran Social Services, which is one of the big predominant third-party companies.
Is it, you said Lucent?
Lutheran Social Services.
Lutheran, yes.
Yeah, Lutheran Social Services. And people go and apply there. Now, Lutheran Social Services do what they call a light background checks. They don't do the heavy background checks like the government does, right? They do light background checks. And one of the big things is they end up hiring people who are abusers. They don't do any psychological profiles on them. They don't do any of that stuff. And so these kids get shuttled into these homes, not because these parents want to essentially be foster parents to these kids, you know, like be a mom or be a dad. But what's happening is they're doing it because they want the money. Their focus is how much money can I make off of each kid, and then of course, you know, they're you know, constantly asking for more money as they go along. So their whole idea is the premise is a form of slavery. It's what it is. It's a slavery of the youth. And so these kids get abused while they're into the system. And then when the attention is brought up to the court systems overlook it. Why? Because these people are licensed within the state of Illinois, and they can do no wrong unless you can prove indefinitely that there's been some kind of abuse happening. Most parents,
and they just cover it up. They'll just cover it up because they're agents of the state in many cases.
Exactly.
I think at the state, I think they're getting what I've heard, like $1 million per kid for every legal kidnapping, which is immoral and wrong. But they kidnap these kids and they use the law to do it, and they're getting about $1 million a kid to kidnap these kids. So the question is why? And why is it that, what is it, 800,000 kids a year go missing? How come they can just all of a sudden, poof, 800,000 kids from these state-sponsored human trafficking organizations disappear, and nobody talks about it? Nobody bats an eye. And Shawn, where are they going? What are they doing with these kids?
Well,
you know.
Yeah, I have a pretty good idea of what they're doing. Number one, the main reason why they're doing this is to fracture the family unit completely. It's easier to rule over a nation of individuals and force them into servitude, right, or a form of slavery, than it is if you have a nation full of family units. The family unit is the strength of a nation. But if you want to bring the nation down to its knees, start going after the family. And one of the biggest ways they did that was that by starting on, they would go after the fathers. To get the fathers out of the pictures, they convinced the women you don't need to be married in order to have children, that your security is, you know, the government is your security. The government is your sugar daddy. The government is everything, right? They want to centralize government control over the families. So by getting rid of the father, who is the protective figure in every family, you get rid of him. And then once the women are alone, they're completely vulnerable. Now they're you know, they give them like Section 8 housing. And one of the big things that I've seen, a common trend, is you're going to see a lot of liquor stores. You're going to see a lot of the low-end quality type of life within the Section 8 home systems. And in fact, a lot of the people that go into Section 8, they don't do thorough background checks on them. We see a lot of convicted criminals, or I should say repeat criminals, who end up getting into the Section 8 housing systems. And we're seeing a lot of prostitution. We're seeing a lot of abuse. And so these women are constantly subjected to the state of their minds are in a state of survival constantly all the time. So now that these mothers are screwing up, this is where the CPS system comes in, starts taking these kids and putting them back into the system where they're being subjected to abuse. So when they grow up and age out of the system, guess what happens? They repeat the same things that their mothers are doing or the same things their father's doing. So now you got a fractured nation of 2 or 3 generations of this abuse by the government. And so this is exactly what they're trying to drive to, is how can we rule over a nation of individuals? But to their final push of this is that, we've got to get as many illegals into this country as possible so they can get on the census, the 2020 census. And then this is how they try to redraw the district lines to give the Democrats more power. And the Democrats always come in and say, well, I promise you that, you'll get government, assistance, government support, and we'll do this, we'll do that. And then if you vote for us, and we'll make all this stuff happen, which they kind of do because
buying votes, buying control and buying votes.
Yeah, exactly. So all these people do, with that mentality of, we'll take care of the government, will take care of you, right? And if you vote for us, then we'll take care of you. They disappear for 3.5 years. And during that 3.5 years, they make life as miserable for people as possible. They destroy jobs. They destroy the economy, destroy everything that they could possibly touch. And then that 3.5 years comes up, they show back up in the Democrat districts, and they tell the people that fractured families, if you vote for us, and they do this by appealing to your emotions, not appealing to logic, right? They're not going to tell you this is how you can get yourself out of debt, right? We're going to teach you how to we're going to teach you how to do your financials, right? So you know how to write a checkbook, how to balance your budgets, how to do all these positive things. They don't teach any of that stuff. Instead, what they want is, hey, go down to Department of Human Services, apply for food stamps. So you get the single women that come down there to apply for food stamps. What's the first thing they tell them? You have to sign this piece of paper so the state can go after the father for child support. And so what happens is the father can't pay that child support. They throw him in jail. Now he's been in jail for 30 days. He gets out and he's looking for a job. He gets a job within a couple of weeks and he starts making money. Well, by the end of that second week, they've already got a warrant out for his arrest because while he was in jail for 30 days, he wasn't making any child support payments. So now they've got him on that. So back to jail he goes, and he's in and out of the system constantly because he can't meet the demands of paying that child support because they keep him in jail 30 days at a time. And each time that he's in jail for 30 days, it's a breach of not his agreement, but it's the agreement between the state and the mother, which the mother doesn't understand. This is what she's subjecting her husband or her boyfriend to, these kind of extreme conditions. This is how they keep the family fractured, keep the family completely apart, the duration of the time. But while they teach, the mindset is you need the government. The government is going to take care of everything. And what happens is now we get a nation of individuals. The deep state can go, okay, now we have full control. This is another reason why they pushed for the weaponization of the LGBT community, is because they know that the LGBTQ community is not a healthy recipe for when it comes to family units. It's always going to be the man and the woman who can have children naturally, raise children naturally, and teach their children what they need to teach them. It's going to be more focused on all these other things, right? Well, all these other distractions. They're not really teaching anything of the educational nature. They're teaching propaganda, this constant propaganda. So these kids grow up and they're like, oh, okay, I should do whatever the government says because, they wouldn't do anything to harm us. and that's what they're taught. So
I think that most of these small segments of the population have really been taken over by the feds. There's a lot of people in these different movements who are actually paid activists, and I believe that that's true of everything, including the grassroots. There are so many political operatives in the grassroots organizations. It's not whatever they think they can peel off of the population of America, give it another title, make them feel like they're different or sometimes special. That's who they go after, because that's a psychological profile that they want to activate. It's always the emotional. You're either special or you're a victim. You're they will infiltrate and they will steer. It's very predatorial. That's what a predator does. It will peel off something that it sees as different from the flock. That's why certain animals and certain flocks will immediately be ostracized from the herd, because that's the ones that the predators are going to go after.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
and the herd knows it. And actually, the herd knows it in animals.
Mm-hmm. And that's the thing is that we're in a position right now where we need to recognize the fact that our nation is not as strong as we perceive it to be. Our military has been infiltrated through Biden's executive orders to allow illegal immigrants to be able to take up residency within our military. And then on top of it, you've got the push for weaponization of the LGBTQIA community into the military as well. What this does is it weakens the morale, it weakens the military altogether. And so there's 4 cornerstones every terrorist knows. If you want to attack America from within and cause a major collapse or a civilization collapse, you have to go after the education system as number one. This is something they started back in the 50s. Once they started pushing for the removal of the Bible from the schools, then they have to go after the healthcare system. And that's one of the big cornerstones that they've been doing for so long. Then you have to go after, infiltrate the government on all levels and start putting out weaponization programs. And then you have to go after the family unit. So if you go after those 4 things and you weaken system, well, what you're going to get is you're going to get this attitude where you're going to have this mindset is don't be a hero. Don't try to save somebody's life. Don't try to, be this kind of a positive, good person, who's going to make sacrifices, right? Instead, let's live off the carcasses of those who made the sacrifices in the past and rely on the government, so then the government can just take over everything. And we don't have to worry about working anymore because we can live off of welfare systems, because now they're going to make welfare completely mandatory. And when all those resources are dried up, what's going to happen is they're going to start forcing people to go to work, but in conditions that they don't agree to, but they have no choice, because now the reason being is because they have no idea what hard work and ethics are, right? Because they kind of slowly educated that out of the generations in the past, right? So now you're going to have these people who are going to be nothing more than chattel or slaves. And then they're going to have to go through this hardship for however many generations until they get to a point where 1% of them is going to say, I've had enough. This is not the America that I want to live in. And they're going to do the same things the founding fathers did. And they're going to have this huge bloody fight. And they're going to have to rally as many people together to try to come together and to beat their tyrants. And in this case, we've been in this communication digital warfare with the deep state. And in order for us to be able to win this fight, we had to figure out how we can get this information out about what's actually happening, where we are, what's going to happen in the future if we don't make these certain keystone movements, or make these certain moves. And Elon was one of the gentlemen that bought Twitter, and then he transformed it and it allowed people to be able to come on and speak their truth, right? Protecting the First Amendment, which is this keystone, that's the cornerstone of America, it's freedom and rights and liberties. And all of a sudden, people started to wake up and they started to say, they start questioning everything the government's been up to, everything the government's done. And then they started to see things for what they really are. And that's the reason why Donald Trump won the election. And so now that he's going to be coming in, we still have at least a year where we're not completely out of the dark yet. The real work begins now, where we need to understand the biggest impact is going to be everybody's families. What are you doing to provide for your family? And I'm not talking about going out and getting a job and making all kinds of money to pay for all these things. What I'm talking about is what's going to happen if the delivery trucks are no longer coming. Okay, here's a good example. Yesterday, Joe Biden, on the day of the confirmation of Donald Trump's election, Joe Biden had put out an executive order to ban all offshore drilling, which means there's no gasoline, no oil, no fracking, no natural gas, absolutely nothing. So now the gas prices are going to start to soar, right? If gas prices go up, guess what? Food is go up, clothing is going to go up, everything is going to go up. It's going to go through the roof, but your paycheck is not going to go up.
And where are you going to get the heat from for most people?
Yeah, so most people are going to have to figure out how. Okay, here's another one. Your heating bill. We're right in the middle of winter season right now, so everybody's relying upon natural gas to heat up their homes. And what's going to happen when that natural gas bill is like $5,000 versus $500? Okay, how are you going to be able to pay it? You probably won't be able to pay it all. You might pay a portion of it, but they're going to shut you off because you didn't pay the entire bill, because you're in arrears maybe a month or two now. So how are you going to survive during the coldest time of the year? And this is something that my wife and I, we literally lived through this for 4 or 5 years, where we had a major flood that came through. This was in, I think it was in 2018 or 2019. We had a major flood. It snowed up in Wisconsin. It was like 2 foot of snow. And then a couple of days later, it got up to almost 70 degrees. So all that snow melted so quickly that when it flooded down the river, it ended up coming into our neighborhood. And we had 17 feet of standing water. We had to wait 7 days before we can even get back into our home. And then we spent $17,000 of our own money and the labor from our own hands to fix everything up. But one of the big things is they came in, they cut the power line from the pole and from our house. So there was nothing in between, no electricity.
Why did they do that?
Because our breaker box was in the basement of our house. And so that was underwater.
Okay.
So that's
so it's during the crisis.
Mm-hmm. And then they came and they dug up the shortly after they dug up the gas line, and then they cut us off from the water because that whole area, the water was considered to be tainted. So when you open up the faucet, the water was black instead of being clear like it's supposed to. We have a water plant that's on our side of the town that was under the flood water. So there was a lot of damage that was done to it. And so we had no utilities. And so we had to figure out really quick, okay, this was in at the end of January, 1st of February. And so we knew we had to figure out what we're going to do for the rest of the year, how we're going to survive in one of the coldest times of the year. We had to figure things out quickly. And because we didn't have electricity in the house, because everything is everything that we have requires electricity. So whether it's water coming to your house, gas coming to your house, the lights in your house, everything is. We've gotten so used to the idea of living, depending on electricity for everything. And so,
yeah, flip a switch and everything just kind of works.
Yeah. So once you turn that electricity off, everything else will cease to exist. And so, so this is what the challenge was: is you've got maybe 2 or 3 days of food in your refrigerator, and you've got to figure out what to do with that before it spoils, or you just got to eat it all up, And then at nighttime when you're sleeping, how are you going to keep yourself warm, so you don't freeze to death in your sleep? And so there was monumental challenges that we went through, and over that course of time, what we decided, I decided to do was actually start using some of my innovative mind set to start putting things into place to build my own infrastructure. So I basically did was I turned around and gave the government the middle finger, because our city government had a contract with the federal government and state government that after the flood, they could not give us a building permit for more than $150. So if I wanted to hire somebody, electrician, to come out and install an electrical box, he won't come out because the building permit's only for $150. So that breaker box alone is going to be $1,500, and his time that he would have to spend putting all this together it's going to cost around $6,000. So only $150. The best thing that, if anything, he's going to come out, give me an estimate, and that's $150 to pay for his service of giving me an estimate.
It sounds like a land grab. Was it kind of a land grab?
Yeah, it essentially was. And so there was a lot of folks that dug their heels in. We had dug our heels in. And I gone to the public library, and I brought a notebook and a pen with me, and I started going on YouTube videos and trying to figure out ways how we could build our own infrastructure. I was making pretty good money at the time, so that wasn't an issue. And so I started writing a lot of stuff down. I said, okay, I can do this. I can do that. And then, of course, it's just, through trial and error of the mechanics side of it. You go to the store and you're trying to find all the, little fittings, the exact size fittings and everything, which can be a big headache. But once you get all that stuff and you come back and you start to do the work and start putting things together, after a while, you kind of go, oh, okay, so this is how this is supposed to go. And then you figure it out after a while, and you're like, oh, okay, I understand the system now. And once you get to that point where you have, like, here's a good example. Like we were talking before about methane gas. Okay, so your septic tanks, a lot of the reasons why people have to have their septic tanks emptied is because there's so much methane gas in it. It's pushing all of that waste up to the surface, right? And one of the big ways that you can eliminate that completely, in fact, you can almost not have a septic guy come out and actually drain any of it, is simply by, you have to number one, you pour the enzyme down your toilet bowl, which helps go and break down a lot of the waste. But what comes, the byproduct from that is the methane. And so what we did was we drilled a hole at the top of the tank and welded a nozzle on it. And then I would take a gas line, a flex gas line, and hook it up to that. And then we would bury the gas line and come into the basement. We had a 50-gallon plastic drum that was halfway filled up with water and detergent. And the hose would come in, and it's sealed at the top. So the hose would come in, go into the bottom of that 50-gallon drum. So when the methane gas comes out, it's coming up through the water. The water and the detergent is simply separating all of the nasty smells and the biologics from the methane. So what you're going to get at the top half of it is nothing but pure methane. And then from there, we would filter that through what we call just a dry filter system. And what that does, it takes all the last moisture out of the methane. So you're going to get nothing but methane when it comes out. And that's actually hooked up with our gas line. But we had to go back. We had to remove all of the natural gas fittings from our stove and from our furnace and replace it with the propane fitting, because propane and methane are the same gas classification. Then you can go ahead and you can light them up. Now you've got heat. Now you can cook in your house. You don't have to worry about relying on some company to sell you natural gas. We've already got renewable energy right outside our home. So that was one of the big challenges.
Let's go back to the whole cow fart thing, because you know how they always talk about the cow farts being bad. If these people were smart, they would harness the cow farts and turn it into another energy instead of just wasting it. They don't know how to do anything. They waste everything. Our grandparents used every single thing that they had around them. There was no waste around them, and they knew how to use it.
Yeah, I mean, farmers had to be innovative. Like the vast majority of the innovation in America was done by farmers because nobody was going to come and save them. And so they had to figure out, okay, they got this new machinery, say they got a brand new farm-all tractor back in the day, and they didn't know anything about combustions. They didn't know anything. How does this work, And so they had to figure it out. And then so you got to open up this canister and you got to light this little wick. And then you got to shove it in there. And then you got this empty, like it's like a shotgun shell without the pellets, right? So you put the shotgun shell in there, and then you got to take a hammer and you got to hit it. And what happens is it blows enough of that hot air into the combustible engine to get it cranking, okay, and then the flame from the little torch thing that goes inside of there, that's what's actually lighting and igniting the gasoline vapors. So now the gasoline vapors are going into the chambers and they're moving the pistons, right? So these farmers had to figure out how to do all these things. I mean, a lot of the machineries were massive back in the day, and they were, as far as safety standards go, you can throw safety right out the window because nobody, they had to do what they had to do in order to farm. And they were trying to find a more efficient ways where they can get not only be able to farm the land that they have, but they can acquire more land to farm that land as well. So as time went on, the farmers were very implemental in a lot of the developments on what the next type of tractor should be, right? Because all of these companies like Caterpillar, John Deere, they would go to the farmers and they would say, how can we improve this? And then the farmers would say, oh, this is how you're supposed to do this, or why don't we do this way, or let's put a cabin, right? So you can sit inside of a cab and not have to freeze your ass off, right? And put a little heater or something in there.
Which really is a lot more enjoyable.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, I had I grew up on a farm when I was a kid until I was about 15. So my dad was very innovative with a lot of different things, and we've learned how to build things from our hands, how to use our imagination. My father taught me about hydraulics when I was 9 years old. Most 9-year-old kids don't even care about hydraulics, but
they don't even know what it is. What's hydraulics? I mean, that's what kids are like. They have no idea because they're too busy, playing on the games and such. What you really said there, though, that separates a lot of people out in their ability to perform, honestly, is the people that go just to school with no experience and have never had to MacGyver things in the field because something always goes wrong.
Yep.
So like when you're in a farming situation or you're dealing with animals, whether you're a dirt farmer, somebody who farms plants and such, or whether you are, raising animals, there's a lot of times you got to improvise and just kind of figure something out that will work. And what I can tell you right now is that when you do find those things out, quite often, if it has to do with animals or the land, it's something that can help people. Almost every single innovation of that sort can help people on an individual basis.
Yeah. And, this is a problem in America is that, our generation, we grew up with, we used to learn about like the mechanical pulley systems, right? When my kids went to school, they didn't know what mechanical pulley systems was.
Yeah, what's a pulley?
Never taught it in the schools. Yeah. And so I'm like, okay, well, you're going to get an extra education at home as well as what you get in school. So, so eventually we got to our youngest daughter, and her last 4 years of high school, we decided to homeschool her because we felt that we were going to do a disservice to her by putting her to a public education system, which, number one, it's built more like a prison system, not an education system. And we knew that the quality of education that she was getting at school was garbage to begin with. And
it's just to pigeonhole people.
Huh?
It's just to pigeonhole people, put them in their, their 15-minute cities or something like that. And just, it's about slavery.
Mm-hmm. That's all it is. Kids can't really learn and use their imagination when they're sitting inside four walls all day long for 8 or 9 hours a day. You get them out into the field and you show them and teach them, like the pulley system, right? And how a pulley system works. Children learn much more quickly when there's eye-hand coordination involved. Kids become more coordinated as they grow up. We see a generation of adults today that have the worst eye-hand coordination that this nation's ever seen. And that's because they were shoved into school, fed propaganda for 8 or 9 hours a day. And then when they come home, they're tired, they're depressed, they're angry, and they're just not satisfied. They're not being intellectually fed. And what happens at the end when they graduate, they're just a product of the system. Now they're going to go on to support what the government's been feeding them all these years, is to be this kind of a person, right?
Well, look at when they started getting rid of, say, like home ec and the shop classes and the trade classes that really need. I personally believe that everyone should receive some sort of a skill if we're going to fund education at all. It needs to be locally funded, but there's got to be a skill there, whether it's mechanics, whether it's welding, whether it's being a nurse or whatever. But people should know how to do a home budget. They should know how to cook. They should know how to sew. We should know because if the system goes down, what are those things we're going to miss the most? You want to know what we're going to miss? We're going to miss crazy stuff like sacks.
Mm-hmm.
And this is one of my projects I got going on right now. And how to, what are you going to do if you can't go down to your local store and get a pair of socks? People can't even relate to that. Or what are you going to do if those things that you're used to just going down, poof, it's there, are all of a sudden, poof, gone?
It's that shock value that goes into this. So like when we lost all of our, for 7 days, we lived out of a hotel, which was fine. But then as soon as we moved back into the house, we started cleaning it up and fixing it up. The first 3 weeks, we were in constant shock all the time because we were not used to not having electricity. We're not used to not having heat in the house.
Yeah.
And we had dress in layers. We had 3 blankets. When you wake up in the morning, there's frost on your bedroom windows and your bedroom walls. So when you breathe, you can literally see the smoke coming out of your mouth, right? All that steam when you wake up in the morning. And then right away, your first thought is, okay, I got to get dressed really quick. And you know that your clothes are going to be cold when you change your clothes, right? And then you hurry up, and then you get down to the car and their truck, and then you rush to the gas station and you get a hot cup of coffee in your hand and try to warm yourself up a little bit and wake yourself up. And you get into this routine where this is how your life is going to be. And the sooner you come to accept it, the better it's going to be. Now you're at that point where, okay, what can I do to fix the situation? And
I gotta tell you, you're absolutely right. So my dad was of the generation of shut up or I'll give you something to cry about, suck it up, buttercup. I mean, there was no empathy whatsoever. We did not have heat in the upstairs. We had one little foot by foot pass through register that came from downstairs. The house was freezing. Okay. It was cold. And I'm going to tell you, you go to bed with layers upon layers with 2 or 3 pairs of socks, and you jump underneath that covers and you don't move all night because every time you move, you're going to be losing heat up there. Get up in the morning, run downstairs like a crazy person and try to warm up a little bit in the morning. But it's amazing what you can do when you are in those situations. If, as you say, if you get past this, once you get past this in any situation and you start thinking and stop being emotional, and I'll go back to the Bible on this because all the answers for everything are in the Bible if you read it. Sarah, when she turned into a pillar of salt, there's many translations, but one that I like the best was she didn't turn into an actual pillar of salt, but she came salty. She looked back at what she had lost and was worthless because she spent so much time mourning what she lost. She could never go forward. So if we're worried about what we lost in a situation that is outside of our comfort zone, you stop going, let's assess the assets we have. I'm going to stop right now and not worry about what I lost and just go to what do I have? Do an assessment analysis and figure out what the plan's going to be. First of all, you're going to have some water, you're going to have some heat, and you're going to have some food in that order. If it's cold out, you better have a heat source or figure it out. There's a lot of things you can do for that. You can, there's a ton of options, but good heavy socks and layers and create your own. Basically, that's what the Amish do. The Amish create an environment of their clothing. That's why they can be out in the buggies. And that's what I do with that when I'm out with the horses. You're basically creating your own environment with your clothing by layering and making sure that you're creating air pockets to keep heat in. Or a simple one is having insulated curtains or drapes. A lot of people don't like that, but I'm going to tell you what, I have insulated drapes all over my house. It cuts down the heating bills in the winter and it keeps your house cooler in the summer. And if you look at the way the Amish live, they do the same thing. You open your drapes in the morning, you let the sun in, let it warm up, and you close them down at night and you put a nice little blanket around your house. And it really does change things, And if you can't do that, throw a blanket or a quilt over your windows. Start putting plastic on them. And all those things right now, even in a crisis that we have of our disappearing income or our buying power right now because of inflation and the mismanagement of the nation and the theft and the racketeering and the money laundering, if you do some of these cost saving measures, you're going to have more money. Your dollar is going to go farther.
For sure. And, we need to understand too, back in the day, let's go back to the 1800s. A lot of people didn't even have money. They didn't need money. And the reason being was because they were self-sufficient. They could live off the land. Everybody did. But how did they get the goods and things that they needed? Well, that's where they had a barter system. They would, say your neighbor over here, they need some clothes for the summer, or say the winter. Let's say the winter is coming up. And this is, in March. Okay. So they need some clothes for the winter season, but let's say they have a pig, and you're looking to, to acquire some kind of ham and some meat and stuff, right? Or maybe for breeding purposes. And so you've got a male pig, but you need a female pig, so you need to breed to make more pigs, right? So you would sew up and make winter clothes for your neighbors over here. And so they have 2 sets of each. So you have mother, father, and 3 kids. So they've got 2 sets of clothes. Now then they would give you the female pig. There's an extra one that they have. And now you're able to go, okay, well, now I can breed my pigs and I can grow more pigs. And so I'm self-sufficient. And that's how people used to live back in the day. It wasn't this. They weren't exposed to constant commercials of convenience where, you can go on, like today, we can go on Amazon and I can order something online and it'll show up at my house a day or 2 later, or maybe even that day. We've got so used to this modern convenience so much. And we need to understand that if you're not prepared for what's about to come, and like I said, we have people who are still working for the Central Intelligence Agency that are coming out and actually actively telling us, hey, listen, the government's not going to tell you this. Why? Because they're compromised, right? And they're not here to serve you. They're here to serve the corporate NGOs. That's it. They serve China. They serve everybody else. They're not here to serve you. And in good conscience, as a CIA officer, I cannot sit back and not tell you what is going on. We have Al-Qaeda trained terrorists in our country. And their whole agenda is mass casualty events. So,
and take what you have. Take what you have. They're like a bunch of rats that are going to fight over crumbs. And the people of the United States at this point in time have become pawns on the chessboard. That's it. And so if you want to graduate from a pawn, because you can in this game, you can graduate from a pawn, but it's going to rely on what's here on your head, what's here, and the strength of your heart, the resolve you have to keep going when it appears that all things are lost. That's never the case, because truly God will always step in. He always makes a way, but you have to start thinking. And it's my opinion that when we start thinking, it's not about ourselves, it's about the people around us. When everything seems lost, and people have asked me that many times, it's like, how is it that you've become successful in certain areas? I'm like, well, because my motivation is never myself. And if your motivation is yourself to get more, to be more, to have more power, that, you will always fail, because something will come up that will get in the way. But if you love somebody and you see your life and every minute of your day as a service, either, service to God, service to your family, service to those you love, service to the country you love, service to a purpose that's bigger than yourself, you will literally go 1,000,000 times farther than just if yourself is your own motivation. Because as soon as things get hard to deal with or difficult, you're going to quit and you'll go to something. It's human nature. You'll go to something that's escapism. And this is another thing we see a lot in our nation. There's so much escapism, escape to drugs, escape to alcohol, escape to, pick a vice. It doesn't matter what it is, but escape reality instead of dealing with it. And I really do think that the best thing you can do is if there's fire, if there's a problem, run right to the fire and figure it out.
That's one of the things that, like your interview with the other gentleman prior to me, he made a really good point. And even in his, survival type situation, you got to stop, take an assessment, look at what it is that's what's wrong. If you don't know how to fix it, well, right now we've got electricity, we've got internet, we've got all these things. So go on, on the online YouTube videos and learn how to fix something, how to build something. If anything else, you know what? Take all that stuff and download it, put it on your flash drive. And then when you get a chance, go to ehow.com. That whole entire thing is all about how to build things, how to fix things, right? There's so many different websites that you can get educated from. But there's also, my big thing is there's going to come a day and a time where all this electricity is probably will cease to exist. But you know what always sticks around forever? It's books. So if you've got a book in your hand, and when the system goes down, there's no electricity, there's no water, no gas, no nothing, what are you going to do, right? A lot of people right now can't even afford to start prepping because everything's so expensive. But if you've got that book in your hand, you can read it. You could take let's say a lighter, like a cigarette lighter here, light it, and you can read a book, right? And you can figure things out and go, okay, first thing we need to do is we need to create some kind of electricity or some kind of lighting system for the house, right? So there's so many different ways. You can cut a hole in the roof, and you can put a window, a sunlight window system in. So during the daytime, if your house is, facing east and west all the time, you don't get a lot of light, and you can put sunroofs in. So now your rooms are getting all that light, right?
You can also close parts of your house down, and if it's cold out, close your house down. It used to be they didn't live in the big houses we do. They would live in part of their house and close the other parts that don't have water in it. You want to make sure there's no pipes going through that. But right. To be able to stay in, say, one room of your house and the or by the animals. I mean, animals put up a tremendous amount of heat. Tremendous. That's why they would build houses on top of the barn, because the heat from the animals would literally heat your house.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And, I have to say the farmers back in the day, they were living the life. I mean, I'm honestly, in my honest opinion, I think they had a better life than we do today. Because
absolutely
they were not distracted. They were not, so dependent upon electricity and modern convenience. What are you going to do with, this is the problem that I deal with every day. It's my first half of my day. I do all my work, and the second half of the day, I have nothing going on. So oftentimes people will just fall into that boredom where they go and turn on the TV and start watching TV for 8, 9, 10 hours a day, right? Well, during this time, just like this other gentleman you were interviewing, well, if you got 2 hours to burn, why don't you go online or go buy a book and pick up a book and read it and learn something. I have a lot of projects. My wife, every time she comes in my office, she's like, hey, when are you going to do this? When are you going to do that? I know, right? I got all this time. And so I've been working on all these different projects because I see stuff on, social media or whatever. It's TikTok, or I follow a lot of the innovations on TikTok, and I see some of the stuff and I'm like, that's bullshit. That doesn't work. Why? Because I've done it. I've literally spent this stupid money to go out and get the parts and then try to assemble it exactly like the way they did it. And it turns out it doesn't even work. I'm like, okay. But the biggest takeaway is I just gave myself an education. I know what doesn't work. There's 1,000 ways things cannot work, but there's always that one way it does work. And when you figure out how to make it work, then you're sitting on a gold mine, because then now you can come out and say, to tell other people, you can teach your neighbors, teach your friends, teach your family, and say, hey, I built this 0-point energy generator. Oh, well, the experts say it can't be done. It can't be done. Well, I built one. Hey, would you like to see it? Yeah, sure. And then you bring it over and you show it to them, and their mouths just hit the floor, and they're like, holy shit. And I would turn around and I would always say the same thing. You know, the expert built Titanic, but it was the amateur who built the Ark. Which one stayed afloat? Which one sank?
There you go. It's just learning and knowing your surroundings. That's a really, really good point. Well, I think it's I'd like to I love having you on here. I really think that you're just a wealth of information. If you were going to pick one project that somebody that was a novice to this would do, what would you tell them would be step one if you want to do one positive thing? And see what I want to see what you'd say, and I'll say what I'll say, and then we'll compare notes.
So let's take a look at what our needs are. The most basic need, the most important basic need, and that's water. So I will learn how to install a sandpoint well, whether it's in the basement of your home or whether it's outside your home, because if you can put a well in and you can get water from the ground, which you can go almost anywhere in America, with the exception of maybe the mountains, that's a little bit different. But I would, focus on is, how can I get water into my house? What equipments do I need? How to do this? Or, my other advice would be to people is, go get yourself a copy of the Survivor's Bible. It's a book that I put together, and it's a military survival manual that's designed for civilians. It's got prepping, it's got homesteading, it's got the making good survival decisions in the beginning. So when shit hits the fan, instead of running around like the Grinch this whole Christmas freaking out, you stop, taking an assessment, right? And say, okay, what's going on? And I see all these things happening, but I don't know what's going on. So what do I need to do? I need communication. If I don't have communication, I can't make a decision. So you get yourself a little ham radio, turn this on, turn on the scanner, start listening, trying to figure out what's going on in your area, then start making, moving forward from there. But the Survivor's Bible is designed to teach people about making good decisions, but also pointing to them, showing them different blueprint models of how to put things together, what are the most essential things that you're going to need, how you can start preparing ahead of time, and how you can start going from surviving mode into thriving mode.
I love that. And I think instead of looking at other people for what they have and trying to take what they have, look at the people around you, because what they're really valuable, it's the knowledge they have in any situation. Don't prey upon people, because those people are going to be your greatest asset to be able to work together and get things done. You've got to be able to build a team of people and work together quickly for the common good, taking the skills this person has or that person has and such, because they're going to know something. And find some old guys, and guys, Michigan is the first state that had a gender neutral term. Everybody's a guy in Michigan. I got a guy that does this. I got a guy that does this, whether guys or girls or men or women, they're all guys. Okay. Find some guys that know something out there. Whether and you don't know what people know until you start talking to them and listening to them. You don't have to agree with them. Just listen. Don't respond. Just listen and practice that listening skill so that you're pulling out major ideas, or you're that you're able to extract that from a conversation instead of just looking at what they're saying so that you can quickly bam respond and knock whatever they said away. Just listen. It's amazing how quickly you could pull a team together of people who are actually experts in things.
Yeah, your people who are not government funded, they're going to be your experts. All your government funded people, these are all people with nice, shiny little degrees. They've been taught by liberal universities or colleges about more about social engineering than actually how to fix the problem. And here's a good example. I'll bring this up real quick. If you remember the Dust Bowl in America back in the 1930s, we had a major Dust Bowl. That was because government scientists who knew nothing about actual farming and knew about the soil compactation, they started interfering with a lot of the farming regulations, right? So over back out in California, what they were doing was they were telling them, okay, well, start planting corn instead of the smaller things like grapes and strawberries. Start planting corn, start planting wheat in these certain fields. And what happened was there was so much ground erosion that the ground just turned into nothing but dust. And that Dust Bowl was so bad that it was literally seen in Washington, D.C. And the president at the time said, we need to get our top people on this. We need real experts, not government paid scientists. We're going to get rid of them. I'm going to fire them. And let's go to the farmers. Let's go to the ranchers. They know how to fix this. This is their playground. So they figured it out really quick. And they said, oh, you can't plant corn there. Duh, you can only plant smaller type stuff there like strawberries or grapes or whatever.
Well, I tell you what, all these corn subsidies need to be done because the reason why they did that is to create ethanol. It's all subsidy based, so it's all taxpayer funded. It's like the Teslas would never make it if it weren't for subsidies. We're subsidizing all of this green energy stuff, and they're using petroleum based methods in order to subsidize it. It makes no sense whatsoever. And I think one of the biggest things that I'm a proponent of that I think we need to do is stop all the subsidies, all of them, because most of our farms now are corporately owned. The small farmer can't make it because they don't get the big subsidies that the corporate farmers do. Exactly. So what they did is they subsidized the corn in order to make ethanol. And they waste so much money because if they would have just left it as the switchgrass that was out there on the prairie grass, they could have done the same thing. You would have had no plowing, no fertilizing, no planting, no irrigation, none of that. You leave the plants in place, mow it off at the end of the season, and there you go, make ethanol out of that. Yeah, and they had to create all of these other ancillary industries for them to funnel and siphon money off of. But I don't understand why I'm not hearing more people that know that sort of thing that I know, that this is exactly what they're doing in every single organization or industry out there, is that if we went back to the way that God had planned the earth to run, native plants, leave them alone and figure them out. Hemp, flax, switchgrass, all of these things. I mean, there's all kinds of plants that are really delicious and don't have all the additives in it. Why is it that they put a stop to the small distilleries? Because people were able to make alcohol and run all of their farm equipment off of their own power supplies by distilling the corn on their own farms. I mean, we wouldn't even have to drill. You wouldn't even have to drill for petroleum if we eliminated all of these big industrial processes and went back to smaller farms, farm-based things, people making their own alcohol to run their own equipment on, like the way the Model Ts worked, or the small the small engines and such, we had everything we needed without these things. I mean, look at the plastics you can make out of hemp. It's stronger. It's stronger than steel and some of the other fibers we have that are better for us. You look at the clothes the Amish make. They're all natural fibers. They wear like iron. You're not going to wear your clothes out. They're made for cleaning. It's not just, disposable everything, toss it, and then wonder why we've got these big landfills that are full of toxic chemicals that are poisoning the earth. How do we get this far away from it, Shawn? It just seems crazy to me.
Well, one of the big things is that the corporations needed to create a demand for them to supply in order for them to gain wealth. And one of the big things I learned is they had to figure out how to mass produce so many quantities in a short amount of time, but they needed locations to be able to put them out. And so they came up with the most devilish thing I've ever seen, and that's the chain stores, right? The chain industry is where they have all these different chain stores all over the place, and they start putting out all their products, right? So they're in control of their own products. They sell them. And then Walmart, sat down with the U.S. government. I'm pretty sure what type of what agency, but they gave them a blueprint on how to knock out their competitors, and Walmart can become the number one most dependent on for just about everything. And so what they did was they would go and they use what they call the UPS hub system. And they would go to these big cities. And on the outskirts of the city, because you have to drive outside of town, 2-3 miles. And once you get out to that point, it's farmland. And so what they would do is they would give the city a bunch of money. City would then redo the lines. So they cannot be, you can't put a house up there. It has to be all for commercial
zoning.
Use. Right, for zoning. Mm-hmm. So then they would develop the land, and they would put in all these other buildings into place. Like they put in Menards building. They put in all these smaller buildings, like, there's US Cellular or the Chinese food buffet place or whatever. But then they have the Walmart building. A lot of people think that Walmart is making a lot of money off their products. No. That's just a subsidy. What they're really making money off it is the lease that they put out there. So they have Menards who's paying millions of dollars a year just to lease the building, to have the building with their name on it. Menards doesn't actually own the building. All these little small businesses, they don't own anything out there other than the stuff that they sell. So they made it more attractive to all the smaller businesses. Hey, come out here. We'll lease out this building to you. So this is how Walmart exploded back in the 80s and 90s with their model of how they're going to do their business. So their business really isn't about providing services to people. Their business model changed and said, okay, we're going to be servicing to other businesses. So this is how we're going to bring in the money, because businesses have the money. People don't. People will spend maybe $50 to $100 a week, but these businesses will pay, $10,000 a month. So if we can take that $10,000 a month and whatever the people are paying for these products, okay, that's just a little extra money. So they're literally capitalize on this, but what the end up result is they killed off a lot of smaller businesses. Like, see, the downtown businesses, we in Freeport, we've seen a lot of them board up the doors. Why? Because how are you going to compete with a Walmart when they're selling a bag of dog food for $9 and you're selling a bag of dog food in your, say, your pet shop downtown, it's $35, right? You cannot afford to sell that bag of dog food for less than $35. Otherwise, it's literally going into your profits. So how do you compete against somebody who's selling for $9, right? So this is how they, and then of course they, Walmart spends millions of dollars a year in the lobbying for the control of, of everything. So
to devote themselves to more corporate welfare.
Exactly.
Yep. The insurance companies, the car companies, when you look at what's happened in the state of Michigan, it's just criminal what they've done with the auto industries here and the corporate welfare. Honestly, the people of Michigan should own every single automotive company on the planet because we've subsidized it all. And then they get the money and then they just go down to Mexico or something like that because there's no accountability on where the money's being spent. They don't even have to perform. They just say, hey, give us this money. We're going to do this. And then they leave. There's no expectation of performance.
Yeah,
but sounds good.
They'll get the board of directors a big Christmas bonus, like $2 million here.
Or $18 million, like, say, Dan Lope did in the state of Michigan for Blue Cross Blue Shield after Gretchen Whitmer got put in place. Oh, did I say that right out loud? Yes, I did. And they're doing it. They're doing it in every industry. Check out your insurance industries. Those are the reason why the rates are so high. Check them out because this is criminal what happens and what has happened when they commandeer an entire industry like insurance. I mean, we can sit here and talk about this stuff all day long because the reality is so big, though, going back to it. I don't think most people have the ability to get their arms around it because it's such a big problem. But you know what? All we got to do is everybody's just got to come together and do a little bit at a time. And we're going to keep talking about it. So I'm glad you brought up water. Water would have been my number one. I would have said, go out, buy yourself some Life straws today because that's easy. If you can buy yourself a couple Life straws, you don't have to have any expertise to put a well point in or anything like that. But it's something that you could do right now and give yourself a little peace to know that you've got that handled. And
there's a company out there called BSL Survival, and this is a company that I endorse because one of the big things I do as a security consultant and as a survival expert too, and I buy a lot of their products and I field test them. So I make sure that, is this something that an 8-year-old can use? And then this is something that an 80-year-old can use, right? So if an 8-year-old and an 80-year-old can use these products easily, and it's actually going to last them, say for at least 2 years. If they don't break before then I will recommend the products to them. And BSO Survival, they actually put together bug out bags, essentially what they are. But they have a medical kit bag, with all the medical equipment that you would need for first aid all the way up to surgeon level. And they have also like the food. Let's see what else. The tools that you would need, they also have it's kind of like a Life straw, but it's actually better than Life straw. You get about, I want to say 40,000 gallons more water. You can
really?
That. Oh yeah. And I'll put it this way. They sell their products that they sell it to special forces.
Oh, that's cool. So I'm not familiar with these. I think these chem-lights are a really good idea too. I think that's a great idea to have because you can and some of the things that you buy, you can boil them and they'll go back to the normal state and then you can reuse them again. I'm not sure the chem-lights do that, but there are other things out there that will generate heat and such that will.
Yeah, they sell a lot of the stuff that they, all the stuff they sell, but they also have a partnership with a lot of actual training centers.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they have guys that are retired special forces that started up their own training centers where they're training civilians on how to survive in any kind of scenario or any type of situation, right? So you guys got guys up in the Northwest. You guys got there's guys down in I think Arizona. I think there's one down in Tennessee, and you can sign up for their courses. You can go through their courses, Afterwards, you get a certification. You get kind of like you're a part of their family, right? You become a part of their family, part of their legacy, and everything that you learn from them. Essentially, when you go back home, you're going to be teaching it to your spouse. You're going to be teaching it to your kids. You'll be like, hey, I took this course. I survived in this kind of conditions, and they taught me how to use this and how to do that and all these different things. And one of the big reasons why I recommend it is because we're talking military special forces. They've been trained into surviving these certain conditions, and they're offering these courses to civilians. And so the more the civilians can go and learn these different things, because the thing is this is funny, but if you go back into the 1800s, it was the civilians that taught the military how to survive in extreme conditions, right? Now that the military, over the years, the military got, better, stronger, more proficient, and the civilians ended up becoming more complacent, more lazy, more convenience, right?
A slave class, basically the corporations.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we got the corporations and the government. Their main aim was to silence all the old men and the old women and take the knowledge that they have and throw it in the shitter, right? How do we do this? Pharmaceutical drugs. Let's get them hooked on drugs, right? So they have an early onset of dementia or Alzheimer's or things like this. Now the younger generations coming up, what do? They infiltrated the education system, and they stopped teaching them the things that value and matter the most. And so now we've got two generations of young people, young adults, who have no idea what is the first step in surviving in outdoor conditions. But here's what they do know is they sit behind a video TV screen with a PlayStation 5 and they play Call of Duty all day long. But when they actually get out into a real world scenario, what they don't understand is this. If there was any actual battle or any fight that's going on, your number one enemy is going to be your environment. Always going to be your environment. It's going to be a lack of water. It's going to be a lack of medical equipment. It's going to be a lack of shelter. All these things, these are the most basic necessity things that we should be learning. It should be number one education. It's not going out there with a gun and fighting the enemy. All that glory and all that, flashing lights that you see on PS5 on Call of Duty, that's all an illusion. You don't respawn after you've been shot. You don't just respawn, pop back up, and then lock and load, you're ready to go. It's not like that in real life. In real life, is when you get shot, you go down. If you manage to survive it, great. If you don't, well, we'll see you in the next life. That's the reality of things. Is the mindset is very different from when you're playing the game and when you're facing a real life situation.
When you're living it.
When you're living it.
Yeah.
When you live it, you can say with absolute certainty, this shit is bullshit. It doesn't work. This stuff actually does work. I've taken this out and I tested this product, here's a good example. So like I have one of their bug out bags with me, and I've added a few things to it because I know what I would end up needing, but like this life straw, for example, let's see if I can turn this virtual background off. Okay, there we go. Okay,
that's fishing poles back there.
Yeah, I've got my fishing poles and
nets, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, I'm a big fisherman.
Yeah.
But like this light straw, it does like 40,000 gallons more than light straw does. So what's nice about this is that it has the features like we used to have we call bladder packs. So you put the bladder pack on first, then you put on your backpack. In some cases, you can there's like an extra pouch in your backpack. So you put a bladder bag in there. What it is this like a kind of like a rubber membrane. It's a bag, and you fill it up with water, fill it up with Gatorade, whatever. There's a clip on it. You slide the clip over, and there's a tube that goes into it. And the tube comes out, right? And then your tube will then go to something like this. And then from there, there's a tube that comes out and usually clips onto your inside of your sweater, or your jacket, or whatever. So whenever you get thirsty, you can just pull it up, start sucking on it, and you've got hydration. But you're not having to stop every 5 seconds to get down to the ground and try to suck water up from the ground. You've got an actual bladder bag that this is hooked up to. You can continue to walk while you're drinking water. So. And
you may be in a situation where you don't want to be detected either. So you don't want to have anything that disrupts you or such. If you need to move around kind of quietly, that's an important thing too. Well, I love this, and I want to keep doing this, going over the survival stuff with you, as well as just how the world really works, because so many people that are younger than, say, you and I are, that they just wouldn't know these things, or people that didn't grow up in a farm, that haven't taken care of animals, or know how to MacGyver things out in the field without things being ideal. If there's a problem, are you going to know how to splint someone to get them either in, and would you be able to get them to help? Then you may not. And so you may have to just try to figure things out, and a good first aid book or a little first aid training would go a long ways too. But anyhow, this is great. So question, do you want to pray today, or do you want me to pray as we end the show?
I'll pray for you.
I love that.
All right. So, Lord Jesus, we come to you today with a humble heart and gratitude. We want to thank you for this opportunity, for putting all the people in our lives to teach us the things that we needed to teach us over these years. Lord, we want to thank you for all the opportunities and all the hardships, because we couldn't have learned anything without hardships. Lord, we want to thank you for your sacrifice and all the goodness that you've done for us. Also, too, Lord, we want to thank you for all those who are listening today that are looking to be searching to find a ground somewhere in their lives. And, they come to you and ask you to lead them, to save them, and to find some ground in life, because this world is like a sandy beach, Lord, and to build a house upon a sandy beach is foolish, and we need to, build our house upon you. And that's the only real way that we can have solid ground in life. Lord, we ask that you continue to lead us, to teach us, to give us comfort and aid, to continually just be there for each and every one of us. We ask that you give us the strength to go out, be the leaders that you've called us to be, to continue to share the truth, continue to share the education and knowledge with as many people as possible. And we hope, Lord, that you will open their ears and their eyes so that we are able to do these things. This we pray in Jesus' name. Amen.
In Jesus' name we pray, amen. Thank you, Shawn. That was really nice. I appreciate that so much. So, well, boys and girls, this is where we go to that part of the show. Tomorrow we have Liberty Essentials, and I'm still trying to get back after about 3 weeks of taking off time and figuring TikTok out. I'd like to invite anybody to come and check out TikTok. Shawn's on there. I'm posting and looking at his stuff, and he's doing my stuff, and so we're kind of reciprocating with that somewhat. But asking all of you to please go there, and I've learned how to post the videos off, download and repost them too. I actually think TikTok's video editor is pretty good, so yeah. I think that's kind of a fun thing to play with. But at any rate, you can find us there. But that part of the show, boys and girls, as we get back at it again, please go to BrandenburgForGovernor.com, because I'm the best non-conceited who's ever not conceded in the history of the United States of America. And I would like to have a discussion with the rightful president of the United States, President Donald J. Trump, about it. in cowboy boots, and on this non-conceding thing, and going when all things seem to be hopeless, and continuing to go on and on and on, and really make some people really uncomfortable with coming face to face with someone who's not going to stop. And I love talking to you and some of the other wonderful people on the show here who just continue to persevere no matter what we see or hear, to be driven by that higher purpose, knowing that this world we're here on a work visa from God. That's it. We are on a work visa from God. I'm going to fly off this rock at some point in time. Looking forward to that day, quite honestly, and going home to be with Jesus. Not going to be a bad thing for me. But while we're here, we're going to make every single moment count in service to God, his world, and his kingdom. And to get up every day and say, God, what do you want me to do today to bring your kingdom on earth as it is in heaven? What do you want us to do? What do you want our hands to do, our mouth, our feet? What do you want us to do? Because we lay it all down to him. It's all him. And so with that said, don't get discouraged with what you see out there. There's going to be some bumpy roads ahead of us. I can guarantee you that we're going to have a bumpy road ahead. There's going to be so many blessings that will come out of hardship and things that challenge us. Way more blessings when you go through something that's difficult than when it's easy. You just have to look for those things, and it's going to be okay. It will be okay. But look for those things and start thinking. Don't emotionally react. Don't turn into Sarah and look back and just remember the glory days of when you could do things that we may not be able to do at that point in time, because the blessings will be much, much greater, and they'll be lasting. Those things that are invisible, the invisible qualities of God that you don't really get them any other way, other than really finding out for yourself. I want to say congratulations to President Trump and J.D. Vance for the confirmation. I watched it yesterday. I want to say congratulations to the United States of America, and for becoming more active in our governance. I want to say congratulations to every single person out there who's never quit, who continues to fight on for those things that we believe in. I'm proud to stand with you. I'm proud to be an American. I'm proud to stand with you who will hold the line with courage and faith in God that he's going to be with us no matter what comes. It's going to be a glorious future. And even if the lights go out, even if the communication goes down, even if the supply lines go down, guess what? It's going to hurt them. It's not going to hurt us that much because they're dependent on us. It's like the grasshopper and the ant scene in the movie. The reality is that we never needed them. They need us. And that right there is what they're afraid of. They're terrified of us realizing we never needed them. Yeah. And it's going to be okay. So with that said, God bless you all. God bless all those whom you love, and God bless America. Make it a great day. Make every second count. And you're going to see miracles happen right before your eyes, things that you never imagined would happen. And God's just going to give you more things to fight. You're going to be stronger. You're going to be a better warrior. And we're going to take this nation back, and we're not asking their permission. So for God, family, and country, let's go. See you tomorrow. And thanks, Shawn, for being on. Stay on a minute. This is where we get to talk after the show. I love this part the best, actually. So here we go. And we'll see you tomorrow.